This is Special Prosecutor Larry Klayman.
I'm the only lawyer ever to obtain a court ruling that a president of the United States committed a crime.
For truth. For competition.
As a young lawyer, I helped break up AT&T. That's why you have all your cell phones today.
For sovereignty. For the Republic.
I'm the guy who at Judicial Watch, which I founded, uncovered the Chinagate scandal. Millions of dollars going to the Clinton campaign, corrupting our political system.
For the privacy of citizens.
And I'm the only guy to have enjoined the National Security Agency from mass surveillance on hundreds of millions of Americans.
Tearing it up.
I'm the son of meat packers in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. I know how to slice and dice.
Bringing it back.
We're going to take this country apart and put it back together again in the way envisioned by our founding fathers.
It's not just talk.
We're not just regurgitating news stories. Larry Klayman, special prosecutor, is making the news.
And now, here's Larry.
Welcome to this week's edition of Special Prosecutor with Larry Klayman. Lots of news this week. Lots of things that Freedom Watch is doing. We're preparing for our citizens' grand juries to begin on or about September 25th in Texas. We'll be coming to a town near your hometown, if not your hometown. It's obvious that we don't have a Justice Department. Jeff Sessions is on life support. In fact, I wrote a column at worldnetdaily.com, and I would like you to go and read that column. You can find it at freedomwatchusa.org, our website, because it really explains the dynamics of where we are today. Of course, what happened in the last week was the criminal conviction of Paul Manafort, the president's former campaign manager. Paul Manafort, the former partner of Roger Stone, of Lee Atwater, of others in Stone, Kelly, Atwater. It was a big consulting group many, many years ago. They became millionaires, all of them, all of these people doing consulting, getting people elected like Ronald Reagan, like George W. Bush, they tried to get Jack Kemp elected president. He later ran for vice president with Robert Dole as a presidential candidate. These are people who have used the system to make money. Manafort obviously was convicted, had nothing to do with the Mueller investigation. The president's right, it is a witch hunt. And then, of course, we saw the plea agreement with Michael Cohen, the president's so-called lawyer, somebody who went to the worst law school in the United States. Obviously, he's simply a bagman. That's all he ever was. But he turned state's evidence. He's working with Mueller, and he's implicated the president in what was alleged falsely to be a campaign finance crime. You can't commit a campaign finance crime by paying off hookers and prostitutes and call girls or whatever they are. Who cares? It really doesn't matter. The creepy porn lawyer, Michael Avenatti, represents them. But you can't actually commit a crime if you use your own money, and in particular, if you're doing it for a purpose other than to influence an election. And of course, the president was doing it, I think, to keep the information away from his wife. And of course, that's understandable. But all that being said, we now are faced with a situation where there are other stool pigeons coming forward besides Michael Cohen, the owner of the National Enquirer in Florida, and also the foundation, the Trump Foundation. They've been given immunity. And of course, it's been reported just Saturday morning that the aide to Roger Stone, someone who is very close to Roger Stone being, of course, as I said, the former partner of Manafort, someone who said that he knew that emails were going to come out of WikiLeaks that were going to implicate John Podesta, the Democrats and Hillary Clinton in wrongdoing. His aide, Andrew Miller, apparently has flipped as well at this point. Miller was going to take an appeal of defying a subpoena of Robert Mueller all the way to the Supreme Court. That would have been a great vehicle to test whether or not Mueller has the authority to go off the reservation and do all of these investigations under the mandate that he had as special counsel. So things are closing in on the president, and that's not to say he did anything wrong. I don't believe that he did anything criminal. I don't believe that he did anything such as Russian collusion. He was right to, in fact, dismiss James Comey. He should be doing the same thing now with regard to Jeff Sessions, Attorney General, and Rod Rosenstein, and we'll get to that. This is his authority. This justice system has broken down completely. I can tell you that. That's why I started Judicial Watch in 1994. It's gotten much worse since then. After I ran for the U.S. Senate here in Florida, which is where I am today, I started Freedom Watch because we need a hard-hitting People's Justice Department. Judicial Watch, as I've said before, is no longer the People's Justice Department. Mostly all they do is get documents. It's run by a non-lawyer, Tom Fitton, who at the time I left Judicial Watch hadn't even graduated from college. It doesn't make you more intelligent to go to college, but he lied to me and told me that he had been a graduate when I hired him. He says he since has gotten his degree, but okay, fine. We need a group with integrity that's hard-hitting, that is willing to go the extra mile to do what needs to be done to restore our system of justice, to have an equal system of justice. And we don't have that right now. And what's happening is the president is being dragged to the guillotines. Things are closing in on him. The Republican establishment, with the exception of Lindsey Graham, and I commend him for suggesting that Sessions should step down. Sessions attacked the president this week, saying, I'm not going to be politically influenced. Well, president shot back correctly. You are politically influenced, because if you weren't, you'd be investigating the crimes of Hillary Clinton, of John Brennan, former CIA director who wiretapped the Trump Tower, James Clapper, former director of national intelligence. Both Brennan and Clapper lied to Congress under oath on top of all their illegal surveillance, which was unconstitutional under the Fourth Amendment. You'd be investigating Mueller's own exceeding his authority, and that Mueller has been leaking grand jury information. We're going to get more evidence of that on September 4th, when the court in Washington, D.C. requires that documents be produced of Mueller's communications with the media. Judge Emmett Sullivan, a Democrat, an honest Democrat, there are a couple in this country, ordered that. And so this is really what the president is up against. And if you couple that with the fact that he's got the worst legal representation for any president in American history, his representation is even worse than the representation that Bill Clinton had. Actually, he had some decent lawyers, with the exception of Bob Bennett. Kendall of Williams and Conley, David Kendall, who I've locked horns with for many, many years. I'm still doing it over our wrongful death case with Hillary Clinton over Benghazi. He was a competent lawyer. Giuliani is not competent. Jay Sekulow, a good religious rights lawyer, he's not competent in the religious sphere. These people are allowing the president to get dragged along to his political death. And in fact, it's happening, and it's closing in. It's very likely at this point, given this entire dynamic, given the entire stench coming out of the Mueller investigations, that the president and the Republicans will lose control of the House of Representatives. It's extremely likely at this point that the president will be impeached. Now, he won't be convicted in the Senate. You need a 2/3 vote. You only need a majority in the House of Representatives to be impeached. But this will grind the country to a halt as we're trying to negotiate peace with North Korea, with Iran. They have a nuclear threat. We have to eliminate that. We've got issues at home with regard to domestic violence from Antifa and other domestic terrorists. They're trying to destroy this country. And immigration issues, building the wall. We had this young girl, Tibbetts, killed this week by an illegal alien. We confirmed that she was killed this week. So all of these issues are out there, and the country is being ground to a halt. And that is why, at this point in time, we need a new attorney general, but we're not going to get one. However, in any event, the president needs to take matters into his own hands now. He should not wait till after the midterm elections to demand the resignation of Jeff Sessions. Sessions is worthless. Read my WorldNet Daily column at freedomwatchusa.org. Early on, I talked to Sessions after he was confirmed. I said, you've got to investigate this illegal mass surveillance on the American people. We at Freedom Watch have gotten 2 preliminary injunctions to have it stopped. That gave rise to the USA Freedom Act. But the intelligence agencies, the Obama deep state, are not honoring that. And now we see the wiretaps of President Trump, his family, his associates at the Trump Tower. And Jeff Sessions said to me, he was then Attorney General, wait till Rod Rosenstein, my deputy, gets confirmed. I'll put Rosenstein in contact with you and we'll investigate that. I also asked him to look into the Bundy prosecution, which is political. You can see that again at my column at WND.com. Please contribute to our cause, by the way. There's a link there to do that. We need the financial resources, tax-deductible resources. We need to get bigger and fight this scourge that's destroying our justice system. But he said he would look into the Bundy prosecution. He never did. I kept pressing him. Then when the judge, this corrupt judge, Gloria Navarro, who was recommended by the most corrupt American senator in U.S. history, Harry Reid, appointed by Obama, finally had to dismiss the case, even though she did everything she could to get the Bundys and peaceful protesters convicted. She was forced to because we found hiding of evidence by the prosecutors in Las Vegas. We found lying by the FBI and the BLM. She had to dismiss it. Sessions finally said he'd reveal it. But just in the last few weeks, he has had his prosecutors, the same ones that committed these crimes, to file a notice of appeal of the dismissal. So it's not over for the Bundys. And go to ClyvenBundyDefenseFund.org, ClyvenBundyDefenseFund.org, and contribute to Klayman's defense. Because what we face today is an incredible government tyranny. It's out of control. It's being furthered by the leftist media. And I'll tell you something, when Manafort was convicted and when Cohen flipped and when these other individuals came forward and got immunity, the owner of the National Enquirer, the person who ran the Trump Foundation, are saying the foundation used monies illegally to grease these women to get them to be quiet. National Enquirer is accused of doing the same thing, of buying the stories, taking them off the market. When all of this came forward, you saw that I'd say about a third at least of Fox News, which paints itself as the beacon of conservatism, which it's not. It's watered down conservatism. I'd say about a third of those commentators, Neil Cavuto, Shepard Smith, others, you can see signs that they're abandoning Bret Baier, Trump. Okay, they're going in the other direction because Fox News is run by the Murdoch brothers. They're actually liberals. You know, the only reason that Fox has tried to stay conservative is because it's got a huge market share. It's making a lot of money, a lot of advertising dollars. So we're in a precarious position. You can't, this rhetoric that you hear on Hannity, that's all it is. Same people every night. We have to take strong legal action, and that's why you need to support Freedom Watch's citizens' grand juries, because we will indict Brennan, we will indict Clapper, we will indict them all. I'm going to be back and explain how we're going to do that. Go to freedomwatchusa.org, contribute to our cause, sign up for our Justice League. I'll be right back.
Fearless.
This Klayman, he's crazy, he's racist, he's out to kill the Democrats.
Dangerous.
You don't care, he uses the court and the law.
Lethal.
This is bad,
Special Prosecutor
very bad.
Larry Klayman.
If you'd like to support Freedom Watch and this radio show, go to freedomwatchusa.org.
I want to tell you now, as I've told you before, but I want it to sink in. I want you to share this radio show. It's up on radioamerica.com, its blog. I put it up on freedomwatchusa.org each week after I do it. I get it out on YouTube. We had over 100,000 listeners on YouTube for our show last week. It's going to mushroom because what you're getting on this radio show, Special Prosecutor with Larry Klayman, is the unvarnished truth. It's not watered down. It's not couched to increase ratings. It's not positioned to get advertising dollars. It's the truth, and it's the hard-hitting truth. And, you know, I don't mean to keep beating up on Fox News, but I get really upset when I turn the TV on every night and I watch Hannity in particular. I never really thought that Hannity, I know a lot of you like him out there, but he's never treated me ethically or honestly. In fact, Fox has a blacklist where many people are kept off of Fox when they say things that hit to the point. And Sheriff Joe Arpaio now is banned from Fox. Judge Roy Moore is banned from Fox. You've got the Bundys. They won't carry the Bundy story. And Hannity in particular has these same people on every night. Sarah Carter, you know, I don't want to name the others. Some of them I like, but, you know, I'm tired of hearing it. I'm tired of hearing his monologue. He keeps repeating the same thing every night. We need people who are going to take action here. We don't need just more information. We don't need documents from Tom Fitton. Okay, Tom Fitton can take the documents where the sun don't shine. What we need is action. And that's what I'm proposing. You know, and I'll tell you something. During the time of Obama, to tell you about Fox News, you could never say that it was half Muslim and that was influencing his prejudice towards Jews and Christians, or that it was infecting the way he was handling Israel and denigrating Israel and supporting actions against Israel at the United Nations and things like that. You could never talk about his birth certificate. I mean, everybody knows that the birth certificate is fraudulent wherever he may have been born. But if you challenge that, and President Trump did before he was president, and I did, I brought court cases on that. Chief Justice Roy Moore of the Alabama Supreme Court ruled that when you register to run for president or vice president, you have to present your birth certificate. It doesn't matter whether you're Democrat, Republican, Obama, Trump, or anybody else. It's reasonable. It's like showing your identity before you go to vote. I mean, to permit for an honest election, not to have fraud. But yet, if you raise that issue on Fox News, you were called a birther, you were denigrated, you were made fun of. And that's what the liberal media does. So they pander to that. They try to show that they're bending over to be fair and balanced. Well, you know what? If there's ever one thing that I agree with Al Franken, is that Fox News is unfair and imbalanced. And that's why you need to listen to what I say each week and get it around to people. And I know that very few of you, just very few, we had about 2,000 likes on our last video that I put up on YouTube. I'd say about 6 that didn't like. Okay, I don't care if you don't like what I have to say, but I'm going to say it because we need to change. We need to educate the American people. And in that regard, these citizens' grand juries, which the great Justice Antonin Scalia in 1992, United States versus Williams, said the grand jury belongs to the American people, doesn't belong to the 3 branches of government. That's a vehicle to bring about justice, because we don't have a Justice Department anymore, particularly with Jeff Sessions. We don't have a Congress that does anything more than a dog and pony show. And where are they now? They're on vacation. And when all this stuff's happening, we don't have a judiciary at the lower level that really addresses this corruption. 80 to 90% of them are Obama and Clinton appointees, and the conservative ones are scared of their shadow for the most part. There are very few that would take action. Maybe Judge Royce Lambert's the only one in this country, in D.C., who would. But we need the people to rise up. So yes, we're going to commission grand juries. We're going to do it neutrally. We're going to indict Robert Mueller for illegal grand jury leaks. We're going to take him out legally. We're going to indict Jeff Sessions for failing to honor his oath of office and obstructing justice himself by burying investigations of the Clintons, of Obama, of Clapper, of Brennan, who have illegally surveilled not just Trump, but the entire American people. We are going to then try these people before a retired judge who is neutral. We're going to get a jury for that trial, which is neutral. There's enough information that we have out there. We don't need any more documents. We're then going to sentence these criminals, and then we're going to effect citizens' arrests if President Trump will not enforce the convictions through the U.S. Marshal Service and the Federal Bureau of Prisons. You know, we're going to do it peacefully and legally. We believe in peaceful and legal means. But the American people are going to need to rise up. So go to freedomwatchusa.org. Sign up for our Justice League. Let's get justice through the criminal citizens grand jury process. I'll be right back.
And now, 4 words that make corrupt politicians make wee-wee in their little pants.
Transparency and the rule of law will be the touchstones of this presidency.
But we have to pass the bill so that you can find out what is in it.
Special Prosecutor Larry Klayman.
Be the one who makes our country great again. Go to freedomwatchusa.org and donate.
I want to continue with this whole issue of how the media and others treat different characters in our system today. Even on Fox News, as I said, you don't actually get to say the truth. And I just want to understand why Obama was given such kid glove treatment, because, you know, you not only had the fact that it was clear, and in fact, he said this to George Stephanopoulos, my Muslim faith, this was back in 2008. It was clear that his birth certificate was fraudulent. In fact, he was born in 1961. The birth certificate, notwithstanding all the other analysis that was done by Mike Zullo, the investigator for Sheriff Joe Arpaio and others, it said African American, that was his race. The term wasn't used then. It was coined by Jesse Jackson in the 1970s. You know, it started off, and Cliven Bundy was prosecuted politically because he used the word Negro. He thought that was the right word. That was what Martin Luther King used. After the successful standoff at Bunkerville, Cliven gave an interview to the New York Times. They set him up, and he equated the plight of his family to the Negro in the Old South. What he basically said was, look, the government is so heavy-handed that they've destroyed black people or African Americans. He used the word Negro in this country. And they've been so heavy-handed with me, they tried to destroy me. And that was taken out of context. But of course, again, Martin Luther King used the word Negro. Well, then along came the word black. African Americans preferred to use black, but then they decided they didn't like that word either. So they came up with African American. That was Jesse Jackson. Well, there are other anomalies, there are other inconsistencies with that birth certificate. Yet anyone who ever challenged whether it was authentic or not, and we've never seen the original, all we saw was something posted on the Obama White House website, got branded as a racist. Well, how are you a racist if you question those things? And look at Judge Roy Moore, who, as Alabama Supreme Court Justice, I know Judge Moore is not a racist bone in his body. He's not a pedophile. He's nothing like that. He's a very fine man. He's a religious man. And he has been banned from Fox News because they run away from anything that touches on anything that it can affect their advertising. That's why the show is so important. As far as Obama is concerned, they're accusing Trump of hiding all this information about women that he had a relationship with, whether it was Stormy Daniels, the porn star, or whether it was a Playboy bunny who allegedly had an affair with, or anybody else. But what about the reports of Obama going to gay bathhouses in Chicago, Illinois? What about the two people that came forward that said Obama actually is gay? The issue is not whether you're gay or not, because everybody deserves equal rights in this country. The issue is whether you lie and tell people that aren't the truth. I mean, look at Hillary Clinton. Everybody knows that she's gay too at this point, but yet she lied about it. That's why the gay community never really supported her, because they know that she's a liar. Okay, not that she's gay. I mean, there's nothing wrong in being gay if that's what you are and you can't help it. But the problem here is that the dishonesty out there in the media and every place else, and the country is sinking. It's sinking politically. It's sinking governmentally in terms of our justice system. It's sinking morally and ethically. We are headed down the drain fast. And at least here we have one great American president who tells everybody to stick it, okay, whether it's the Republican establishment or the Democrat establishment. This is the way I've always been. This is why I identify with Trump. I don't use the coarse language, and that kind of thing. I try to keep it, clean in many ways. But we have somebody here who will recognize the corruption in the justice system, who will recognize the fact that he's going to do something and not worry about whether he's going to be called a racist. And I'd hope to have Armstrong Williams on the show today. He's my good friend. And of course, he had a show called Urban View, mostly an African-American audience. I used to go on it a lot when he was doing it. Armstrong's moved on to doing completely television right now. He's an African-American. He's a conservative. And I wanted to get his take on how Trump is being treated, because he's always being called a racist by a large segment of the African-American community. And they're beginning to understand that he isn't a racist, that in fact, black unemployment is down, that he's moving the country forward in that direction after Obama divided it for 8 years. And now we know he's dividing even more in his multi-million-dollar house in Kalorama. He's financed by George Soros, the self-hating Jew. I'm a Christian Jew, I'm Messianic, so I don't mean that in an anti-Semitic way, but this is a very vile individual who actually collaborated with Nazis with his father in World War II, confiscating their property. We're fighting a battle here. The Jewish left is very, very destructive towards the Jewish people and towards others. And I'll tell you something, it's a fight in Israel today, it's a fight here. A lot of what's coming out of the media comes from the Jewish left. And I'm not trying to whip up anti-Semitism against my own people, but I'll tell you something, they're a huge embarrassment to this country. You can't say that on Fox News, but you can say it here. And things have to change. And we have to set a moral compass. I have a book, self-published. You can go to freedomwatchusa.org and order it. Essays of a Madman. The first column I ever did for WorldNet Daily was called The Ethical Decline of Liberal Jewish Intelligentsia Under Clinton. We need to follow the Ten Commandments. Christians need to do the same thing. I've been baptized. I'm a Christian through and through, but I'm also very proud of my Jewish heritage. Jesus was Jewish. He was a rabbi. He wasn't Christian at the time he was crucified. He was Jewish, by the way. His disciples created Christianity. And the two religions work hand in hand. One is the statute. The other is the regulations in a way. I always said that Judaism is the statute. It gives you a broad concept of things. Christianity flushes it out. Jesus came to show the people in a human form, even though he was the deity, he was the Son of God, where we were going, what we needed to do. He's still here with us. He's come to me twice in my life during hard times. He told me, Larry, you're working for me now. Get everything out of your head. I went through rough patches. Believe me. I fought Fit in a Judicial Watch. He tried to destroy me for many years. He still does. And I fought others. But this is something that gets out, that gets into your heart. And the American people need to accept this, and they need to look to the Father and the Son and say, we need to restore this country to greatness. And when it comes to our radio show, and it's so important, Special Prosecutor with Larry Klayman, and getting the word out, it was the printing press that really caused and was the catalyst for the first American Revolution in 1776. And I say first American Revolution because we are now in a second American Revolution for sure. It hasn't gotten violent. I hope it won't. We're trying to prevent that. But it could if we don't change the way things are happening right now. We've already got the left in the streets. I've got a case against Antifa up in Oakland, California. I got to be up there on September 4th in court. I'm sure there'll be a lot of Antifa goons in the courtroom, threatening me, threatening others. This is just one part of the left that's trying to take over this country forcefully. We can't let that happen. So we need to have a clarion call to rally people of faith, to rally conservatives, to rally libertarians, to rally even liberals who believe in the rule of law, believe in the vision of our founding fathers, believe in what we created in 1776. And it's being torn down right now in the social media as well. We see what happened to Alex Jones. He's been knocked off of all media platforms for the most part, whether it's YouTube or whether it's Instagram or whether it's Twitter or whether it's Facebook. This is happening to everybody. Everybody who's speaking out, who's a conservative, who's a libertarian, others who are candid. I've noticed on our YouTube subscriptions, it stayed static at around 49,000 people for 4 or 5 months. I noticed that our Twitter account's not going up because they're discriminating against the American people. And watch what Larry Klayman and Freedom Watch do in that regard, because we're going to be bringing lawsuits against these companies, against YouTube, against Facebook, against Twitter, against Instagram. I'm going to start a class action because we need to take action. Now, what's happening on Capitol Hill? Nothing. They're sitting there twiddling their thumbs, playing patty cakes as this is going on. They hold hearings all the time. Oh, it's great. Yeah, they get the hearings on Fox News, and then they walk away and start raising money to get reelected. That's a sham. We, the American people, need to take action, and Freedom Watch is your way to do that. So go to Freedom Watch. Join our Justice League. I call it the Justice League because we are the superheroes. The American people are the superheroes, not the government. The government has abandoned this country. We need to get back to the principles that led to the Declaration of Independence in my birthplace of Philadelphia, signed on or about July 4th, 1776. When I go to Philadelphia to see my family and I look at Independence Hall, that is much more hallowed ground than anything you'll find in Washington, D.C. That's the real deal. That's where Franklin, that's where Jefferson, that's where John Adams, that's where others met and formed a great nation. They met at the City Tavern at night. They had a good meal. I suggest that you guys go there, everybody, all of our listeners, and see where this country was formed. And it will bring you back to an understanding that we, the people, are in control, not the government, not the media. We use the media, but they're not the be-all and end-all. And we don't have a pure media. We can't even get out on social platforms anymore to make our point. So please share this radio show. Donate tax-deductible contributions to Freedom Watch. We need to crank up the grand juries. It's expensive. We need to expand our staff. We need to have a place to do those grand juries. We need to have security because obviously these crazy leftists out there present a threat. We need to carry on. We need to then enforce the convictions that we're going to get against Jeff Sessions, against Rod Rosenstein for violating their oath of office, for themselves obstructing justice, against Robert Mueller for his criminal activity with these grand juries that he's set up for the witch hunt to take out our president illegally. We need to get justice with regard to John Brennan and James Clapper and others in the intelligence community under Obama that committed this illegal mass surveillance, which was criminal. And let's not forget about James Comey, the FBI director who was part of it. The FBI was doing this illegal surveillance. I went to him with our whistleblower who had reams of information, 600 million pages, showing this illegal surveillance and how it was getting into Supreme Court justices, judges, prominent businessmen like Trump, anyone that challenged the government like Larry Klayman. Yes, I was surveilled. They got my banking records in Miami back in 2007. I'm sure they've gotten a lot more than that since, believe me. So we need to rise up and we need to fight. And we need these citizens' grand juries, and it needs to be funded. The Bundys need to be helped. They're not out of the woods. The Bureau of Land Management and others are going to be back, okay, particularly if a Democrat president takes control, because they roll over to these radical environmental interests that would rather protect a desert tortoise than protect ranchers in the West where people have gone out of business. Hundreds of ranchers have gone out of business. This is the staple. The land is what gives the people of our country its strength. It's the land, our land. This land is our land, like the motto in Israel. It's the same thing here. And the Bundy family is a courageous family, and they stood up for you and their peaceful protesters that came to help them use their Second Amendment and First Amendment rights to take on a tyrannical government. And they're still fighting. Believe me, I've now brought lawsuits against these corrupt prosecutors, against the FBI and Comey, against Loretta Lynch, against Eric Holder, who were the attorneys general of Obama, against Bureau of Land Management and Neil Korntz, who ran that, Harry Reid's handpicked man. We need to use Freedom Watch as our Justice Department, and we need to rally the troops, so to speak, our peaceful troops, through this radio show. So please get it out to your friends. Watch our YouTubes and support our cause. It's your cause. So go to freedomwatchusa.org. Contribute to our cause. We are, in effect, the president's defense lawyers. He has no lawyers. I mean, Giuliani just goes out there and pontificates. Jay Sekulow doesn't know what he's doing. The president's getting dragged along. They're making money hand over fist, I can assure you that. But they're doing little to nothing to protect our president. We are doing that at Freedom Watch. We're doing more than just getting documents like my old group, Judicial Watch. We are bringing hard-hitting cases and citizens' grand juries. So go to freedomwatchusa.org, support our cause. We are your Justice Department. Join our Justice League. You are our superheroes. I'm going to be back with the final segment of Special Prosecutor with Larry Klayman. I want you to listen carefully to the verdict, because the verdict today is dire. The country's sinking, and we need to do something to save the vision of our founding fathers. I'll be right back.
Before he was a trial lawyer, he sliced him and diced him.
People used to ask me, Larry, what caused you to start Judicial Watch and now Freedom Watch, given the powerful forces in this country that put you at risk?
In a meat packing plant.
I'm the son of meat packers in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. I know how to slice and dice.
A very special prosecutor, Larry Klayman.
If you'd like to support Freedom Watch and this radio show, go to freedomwatchusa.org.
This is the verdict. We're going to have lots of verdicts, believe me, in our citizens' grand juries. Against Obama, who's behind all of this, against George Soros, against Robert Mueller, against James Comey, against Jeff Sessions, against his corrupt Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein, and of course the Clintons, who finally need to be brought to justice. This is, the president's being vilified for alleged campaign finance violations, but go back to the early 2000s when I represented Peter Paul, who came forward with evidence that $2 million that was raised through the Hollywood tribute to Bill Clinton at the end of his administration in 2000 was illegal hard money campaign contributions to try to get Hillary Clinton elected to the U.S. Senate in New York. And of course she was. But she was never prosecuted. That was deep sixed by the same individual who was working against Trump, Bruce Orr, right now in the Justice Department. He's still head of the crime task force. Sessions has done nothing about it. But Bruce Orr was assigned to that investigation of the Clintons back in the early 2000s when I brought Peter Paul to collaborate. He had a cooperation agreement with the Justice Department. But rather than holding the Clintons accountable, ultimately the Justice Department reneged on the cooperation agreement that we had talked about informally with, believe it or not, the head of the criminal division under the Bush Justice Department, Michael Chertoff. And they double-crossed us, and they indicted Peter. He wound up doing 10 years in prison as a result. In fact, I had agreed to represent him if he came forward with the incriminating evidence against the Clintons. This is when I was at Judicial Watch. And when I left, Fitton and company, the people I left behind, who maintained control of Judicial Watch, I wanted to bring in a distinguished chairman after I left, like Bob Barr. We worked with to impeach Bill Clinton, but they didn't do that. Clinton seized, not Clinton, Freudian slip, Fitton seized control. And they abandoned Peter Paul. And in large part, he wound up doing 10 years in prison because he didn't have an adequate defense to all of this. But you see, nothing is new. It's all coming back. The roosters are coming back to roost, in effect. What we need is firm action, and we see why we need this president. This week, we learned that Molly Tibbetts, this beautiful young girl in Iowa, was killed by an illegal alien, someone that was here. She was stabbed to death multiple times, blood all over the place when they found her body. I mean, it's unbelievable. But who but President Trump, as a politician, which he's not really, but he's sitting in that role right now, would say, let's build a wall? When did anybody else talk about that with regard to Mexico? This guy came from Mexico. That's a reality, or Central America that goes through Mexico to get to this country. And I love Mexicans. They're great people. They're hardworking. Well, I don't mean it, but we got to keep the criminals out of this country. And who but Trump would do that? And that's why we need to save his presidency, and we need to save the United States, and we need to save this country for ourselves and our loved ones. Because I'll tell you something, I'll get across the finish line. I'm 67 years old, okay? This country will still exist by the time I pass on. It'll still exist by the time probably my kids pass on, but it won't exist for grandkids. It won't exist into the future. It doesn't have more than 20, 30, 40 years left. And we don't want to see this promised land, along with Israel, vanish. And I'll tell you, Trump's the only one that ever stood up for Israel in the recent history. Even George W. Bush, he never moved the embassy, the U.S. embassy to Jerusalem. I mean, there was a complete buffoon, in my opinion. George W. Bush plus Clinton gave us Obama. That's why we wound up with the worst president in American history, Obama. And Trump came back, and the people were fed up, and they saw that, and they said, no, we've got to right the situation here. So I don't care, frankly, if this president had relationships with call girls or porn stars or whatever. I want to know what he's doing right now. And in fact, the evangelical community, they don't care either. And he's been supportive of Jews, and he's been supportive of Christians and the Judeo-Christian way. And, you know, people can change. They can change. And the presidency does change you. So go to freedomwatchusa.org. Support our citizens' grand juries. Contribute with tax-deductible contributions. Sign up to our Justice League. Help us in any way you can. Put comments on our website so the president can see this, to know that he needs to take action now as well. He can't sit there inert. He's got lawyers who are a joke, and he's being dragged along to impeachment. So go to freedomwatchusa.org. Share this radio show to your friends, to fellow patriots. You are the Paul Reveres. You are the superheroes. We need to rise up, and we need to do what we did in 1776. I'll be back next week with another hard-hitting edition of Special Prosecutor with Larry Klayman. Until then, God bless you. God bless your family. God save America. Thank you.